Welcome to the podcast. It's the magical holidays. Time for Joe watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Why, you might ask? Because it sounds like a crazy task to be watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. It'll be struggle, no I won't lie. By the halfway point I will lose my mind, but with your support I'm gonna be fine. So let's have a blast on this Christmas time. Join me now and let's find out about today's Christmas movie. Was it good or bad? Happy or sad? Is there another dead mom and dad? Let's get to it with no delay. It's your old pal Joe and he's happy to say welcome to Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days.
How's it going, everybody? It's me, it's your old pal Joe, and welcome to episode 9 of Joe Watches 60 Christmas Movies in 60 Days. Buddy, I did not like today's movie. I did not enjoy it. It got me really annoyed at parts. It felt like old times. Enough of enjoying movies. Let's get back to the dirt that we can dig through. But before we go dig into the dirt, my friends, it's time to talk about today's sponsor, our omni-sponsor, sponsor for every episode, Third Eye Comics. If you need any comics, graphic novels, tabletop board, or role-playing game materials, or even music and movies, they can assist you at one of their many locations across the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. And even if you're not in the area in which Joe resides, you can still procure their wonderful wares by going to shop.thirdeyecomics.com. As I've mentioned 8 times before, and I'll mention apparently 51 times more, be sure to go by there if you have anything you're looking for, if you can spare the means and support them. And if you do, let them know you were sent by me so they know that their support of me helps support them in return. You get what I'm saying. As I mentioned, today's movie, A Christmas Vintage, was not an enjoyable affair for me. I did not like it. I had a bad time. I skipped ahead 10 seconds a few times because it was bewilderingly dumb. The crux of the movie is that it's a Romeo and Juliet situation. Except in Romeo and Juliet, instead of ending in double teenage suicide or, whatever, however you want to frame it. If instead of that, Romeo and Juliet was like, well, in order for us to stay going out, we need to get somebody else from each of our families to start dating, and then they'll leave us alone. That's the crux of this movie. The problem with the movie is the idiocy of caring about who is dating whom. We open on a generic snowy town with shots of items in a gift shop. None of that matters. It wasted my time. It did not set the scene either. It just wasted my time. There's also an original opening song. I know I talked just in the other episode about how you can tell the quality of a movie by the fact that they would have original opening songs. I take that back. Old Joe was stupid. Current Joe knows better. This song included the lines. The opening song includes the line, all of the lights are lighted, and I did research and found out that that is an acceptable form of light. I do not appreciate it. I do not like it. I do not wish to associate with the word lighted. Maybe it's because it came from this movie. Then we see 2 young girls playing hide and seek around a wine cellar. We see a hand turn off the lights in there, causing the younger girls to get scared. The older one gives her a locket that their mom gave her. So the younger one's freaking out a little bit. So the older one says, okay, look, why don't you take this locket? Mom gave it to me, and if I give it to you, it'll help you be brave. So she hands it over to the little girl, and within moments, the lights come back on, and they keep the hand of who's turning off. There's a hand that turns off the lights. There's a hand that turns back on the lights, and they keep that a secret, as if it's going to be some revelation at the end of the movie that you're going to go back and go, whoa, that was such and such all along. No, it was just their mom. At the end of the movie, we'll revisit this scene where she accidentally turns the lights off on them, thinking that there's no one in the cellar. And then she turns it back on once she hears them. That's it. Why are they hiding her? 20 years later appears on the screen. A young lady of around 20 or so heads out for a date when her dad asks when he's going to get to meet the new guy she's dating. This is Emily Hermanhoff of the Hermanhoff family. She's the younger girl in the flashback we saw earlier. Anyway, she promises her dad it'll happen eventually, but things are sort of complicated. Complicated how? Well, she leaves before she can explain. We cut to 2 guys talking about wine bottle labels. They make wine for a living. And the one guy is Tony, who owns the company. The other guy also owns the company. It's never explicitly explained because Tony at one point just says, I own the company, so you work for me, to the other guy. But then the other guy also acts like he's a boss, so I don't know. Anyway, the other guy is a true American piece of shit. Why is he American? I don't know. I just added another adjective in. He's a piece of shit. His name is Parker. He is so unlikable. He is so unforgettably unlikable that he is a stain upon this movie for its entire running time. He's so nasty to Tony about these wine labels. Apparently they were made by school children, and I can't tell whether that's sarcasm or not. Because at the end of the scene, he goes off about how bad these labels are. We need better wine labels that represent the nature of the wine that we're making, that I'm making. Parker is apparently the one that focuses on the actual winemaking, whereas Tony handles the books and other such presidential, running the company type of level details. He says, like, these labels don't represent the dark oaky flavor, the cherry back notes, whatever, all those details about how a wine can taste. He just goes off and off and off about these kids and how they failed, and you're thinking, okay, maybe they're not children. Maybe he's saying the job has been done so poorly they were done by children. But then at the end, Tony says, wait, can you explain these charges? And Parker says, well, I was sending the kids some gifts because, all kids should have Christmas gifts. And we're supposed to go like, oh, he's not so bad. No, he's bad. Also, they call him the wine designer, which is accurate but sounds terrible. Tony suddenly gets a text. We find out that he's late for his date with Emily. He's dating Emily, which is a problem because this movie never eloquently explains it. But Hermanhoff, the family in which he's a part of, also makes wine. So there are these two competing companies. There's Parker and Tony's and the Hermanhoff family. And so this date between the two of them is very forbidden because one of them is from one wine company and the other is from the other. It's so stupid, and it's about to get stupider. So they have their dinner, and Emily orders a wine from the opposing company for each of them. So she gets a glass of wine from Tony's company, and she got him a glass of wine from her company, and they both appreciate the wine that they're drinking. But then Parker walks in the fucking restaurant, staring at his phone, because he's used some kind of phone tracker to track Tony there. Tony asks Emily to climb under the table. She is an adult. He is an adult. They are all adults. He says, can you climb under the table? And she does. She does climb under the table. What are we doing here, folks? So she climbs under the table. Parker sees Tony. Parker comes over and goes, what are you doing here? And he goes, what are you doing here? She says, oh, I tracked your phone. I needed to talk to you. I have to keep track of you. We run this company together. What? Tony is understandably mad about this. But Parker blows him off, pointing out it's a company phone. He's allowed to do that. As I put in my notes, I'm 8 minutes in and I hate this movie. So the reason he tracked Tony to where he was is because he has an idea for the wine bottle labels. And he starts going off about how they could be stained and they have some kind of rough edges to them. He finds out, he sees 2 wine glasses there and assumes that means Tony knows he was coming. Idiocy. Pure idiocy. No one would show up to a place where they weren't expected, see a second glass of drink, and go, oh, were you expecting me? No, they would assume that you're there with somebody else and would ask who that was. So he also finds out that Tony ordered a glass of the competitor's wine, and he starts giving him a hard time, but then he understands, no, wait. It's the kind of thing where the dope in this scene, Parker, gets mad about something, but then explains it away in his head so that he shouldn't be mad. So it's like, Tony, you should never order their wine, but you know what? It's a good idea to stay on track of what our competitors are doing. That sort of bullshit. He also starts bad-mouthing the Hermanhoff company, how their dad's a washed-up winemaker, and Emily has had enough. She bursts out from underneath the table and starts yelling at Parker. How dare you talk to my father like that? Parker says, wait, were you spying? Because that's something that happens in this world. She says, no, I'm Tony's girlfriend. Tony tries to quiet them down, but they're both yelling. Parker is fed up and asks to speak with Tony outside. Tony agrees with this, leaving his supposed girlfriend inside by herself. Outside, Parker reads Tony the riot act. He knows the deal. Dump her, or you're out of the company. And I'm confused. What? How could that be legal? Tony says, you know that contract was stupid. We never should have signed it. Why can't I be with a girl I like? This isn't classified military secrets, it's wine. Parker insists, break up with her, you're out of the company. And they go back and forth as if this is mandatory. If he dates this woman who works at a competing wine company, he has to leave the company and lose all shares in the company. And I'm going to go ahead and spill the beans now. That's because they signed a clause in their contract when they created this wine company that if either of them, and this is how it's worded, if they do anything that's detrimental to the company. Yes, so Apparently dating someone who works at a competing company is inherently detrimental to your company. Not telling them how the business works, not selling wine for cheaper than cost, not stealing from the company, not anything else. This is what Parker's willing to die on the hill of, that he's dating someone from another company. And the thing is, I can see someone taking that perspective. What I cannot see is a true adult say, like, that is where their mind immediately jumps to. Oh, you're dating someone from the other company? Well, you're going to do something detrimental to this company. No one would automatically think of that. But this character does automatically leap there, which is also, in and of itself, stupid. Eventually, they end their argument. Emily comes out to talk to Tony. She asks him, how can you put up with this? And Tony says, it's because he's family. And the thing is, Parker and Tony look very different. They are of different nationalities, and they are different races. And the movie takes a long time to explain how they're family. They just keep throwing it out there. They're family, they're family, they're family. And that is, in and of itself, fine. Anybody can choose to be family with someone else. But you don't know whether it's a choice, in so much as this guy is like my brother, this guy is like family to me, or whether it's somehow, it has a legal standing. And in this case, it does have a legal standing. We find out towards the end of the movie that Parker's mom passed away, and then his dad remarried and married Tony's mom. So they're stepbrothers. And it's not that that would make the movie any better, but the way they told this story just adds to the annoyance. Anyway, why did you have to put that stupid clause in the contract, Emily asks. So she knows about it, because Tony must have also immediately thought, well, if I start dating this woman I have met and I like, but she is the daughter of the guy who runs the other wine company, well, that's immediately detrimental to this company. Oh my gosh. Emily says there has to be something that we can do. Then she thinks of it. What is one of the only things that can make someone change? Tony suggests therapy, but it's not that. She leads him away with her solution. We cut to a flight attendant coming off of a flight. This is Samantha, the older sister from the prologue, and Emily's sister. She walks in slow motion, so I think we're supposed to think she's really beautiful. And this isn't to say she's not beautiful, but it is weird to have the movie creating this entire scene just so we go, wow, what a beauty. So she walks in slow motion. Eventually she comes upon two people arguing over luggage. Each one of them thinks the luggage belongs to them because they both had matching luggage. Eventually she just sees that the luggage that one of them is looking for is behind somebody else. And I think we're supposed to get from that, man, she is quite the problem solver. Apparently where she has landed is also her hometown and where Emily and her dad live. She sees that she's missed like 10 calls from Emily. She calls her back and Emily's like, I need your help. You have to come over. So she does. She explains the situation and her plan. What she wants is Samantha, who I'm going to call Sam from now on because it's less letters when I'm typing. Sam, she wants her to distract Parker, maybe even date him. She says, look, Tony and I can't be seen together or he'll lose his shares in the company. So if you date Parker, he'll also be dating the competition, and then that'll make the whole issue null and void. Just then, Tony comes from out of nowhere and scares the crap out of Sam. He was hiding around the corner because he was listening into their conversation and also hiding from a potential appearance by Parker. I don't know. I don't know. And it's so stupid because they play it like it's a straight up haha funny joke, but it's not. It's just weird because these people aren't behaving in normal manners. Anyway, he was hiding because Emily's dad also doesn't know that they're dating. We find out more about the stupid clause at this point. It's specifically about putting the company in jeopardy, but somehow this worries Tony. We also find that Tony and Parker are stepbrothers. They keep saying how they can't date and it's infuriating. Yes, you can date. Come on. Eventually, Sam agrees to help on one condition. If they ever have kids, they have to agree to name one of their kids after her. They agree. She asks, where can I find Parker? Cut to Parker working at the wine bar they run. It's attached to their, the winery, but there's also a storefront where you can sit and relax and enjoy your wine. She picks up a bottle and asks him if she can speak with him, the winemaker. She has some questions about the wine. He tries to blow her off, but she's persistent. She then asks him why he chose to do something with a certain wine. Why did you add this? Why did you add that? And it starts impressing him like wow, this woman knows what she's talking about. Then he sees a server serving a certain wine after another wine at a tasting across the room. He gets up and yells at her like a maniac. And we're supposed to empathize with him at any point in this movie. So he's like, no, you can't serve the white after the red. You need to give them crackers and water first. And he's yelling at this woman. And then Sam steps in to be like, oh, quick question. Can you show me how you do this with this wine? I'd be really curious to see how that works. And he calms down, and then he shows her whatever she wanted to see. He's being such a shithead. He shows off some giant vats and the wine, the brew. I don't know if it's brewing. It's not if it's brewing. The wining area. We'll go with wining because I know that's not right, and that sounds fun. He mentions how they have some sort of mobile bottling utility, some tool that they use. And she slips up and goes, man, maybe we should be using one. And he goes, wait, what did you say? And she goes, oh, sorry, I just said that sounds like a really useful tool. But then they have a delivery. It's actually Emily and Sam's dad doing the delivery. Sam hides behind some of the vats, and we find out that what he's doing is he's selling off some of his grapes to this competing wine company. And it becomes very contemptuous between Parker, of course it is, because Parker's involved, and Sam and Emily's dad, who's there delivering these grapes. And he goes, oh, are you going to be a part of the Christmas blender? And if so, you're going to lose real bad at this event. I can talk more about the Christmas blender. It's a winery event where the best wine wins a big old grand prize. And what the grand prize is will be explained shortly. I don't like this movie. Eventually, she's had enough talking to him, and not in a way where he understands he's done something wrong. She's just done. And she starts to leave, and he goes, hey, could we see each other again? I'm not good at making friends. And it's like, no shit, you're an asshole to almost everybody, except the pretty girl. And you're eventually going to be an asshole to her, too. She reluctantly agrees. When he asks for her number, like, how will I get to see you again? She says, don't worry, I'll find you. Later on, she gives Emily the dirt on her meeting. Eventually, their dad gets home, and he's really happy to see Sam's in town. They missed her at Thanksgiving. Sam wants to talk with him, but then he begs off, saying they can talk in the morning. And we're going to find out this is an ongoing challenge between Sam and her father. It's stupid. The next morning, Sam is up very early waiting for her dad, waiting for this conversation that he passed off to the next morning. Sam says, why didn't you tell me about the new wine company? And why didn't you tell me how well that they're doing? He says, well, we're doing our best here, but I was never the winemaker. Your mother was. Sam says, no, man, we can still beat this guy. I'm even willing to help. I can make something for the Christmas blender. I have some ideas on how to make some good wines. And then he gets really defensive. No, we're not changing our wine for the Christmas blender. And I'm just going to explain this part of the movie now, because it's also stupid. Every year there's a Christmas party, and every year the competing wineries make a Christmas blend of a wine. And then they compete, and the winner wins a big old prize. But their mom was the winemaker, or, in the parlance of Parker, the wine designer. And since she's passed away, he has maintained the same recipe the whole time, the last one that she designed. And that is no longer doing well enough. He's lost the last two competitions to Parker's team, and it looks like it's just going to be a third one coming up. And so both of his daughters, especially Sam, are like, we need to change what this Christmas blend is. And he won't do it. He won't do it. And they're like, why? Is it because it's the last thing that Mom made? And he says, yes. They're like, well, that's not a good enough reason. You're going to run this winery into the ground. And he goes, I don't care. I'm not changing it. It's the last thing I have from her. And towards the end of the movie, when he finally comes to see the light, actually before he comes to see the light, Sam is like, how can you say that that's the last thing you have of hers? Referring, of course, to the two daughters that he made with her. He sees this, but still is steadfast and saying, oh, no, I'm not going to change the Christmas blend. And the challenge with that is it makes me not want to root for them. Because he's being so pig-headed, I don't want to help them either. I don't want to root for them either. So what's the point of having two sides where both of them are acting like idiots? There's a Chamber of Commerce meeting scheduled for that evening where a lot of people, including both wine groups, are going to be there. I'm just going to start skipping ahead. This movie is too dumb. I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody. This is movie number 9. I'm starting to fall apart already. At the Chamber of Commerce meeting, everybody dislikes Parker. Understandably, apparently he always ties up the meeting with dumb questions. Like there was some committee-sponsored event and he didn't like where their booth was, so he complained about it for a long time at the last meeting. In this case, he takes over the meeting early on on just to ask, do you have the prizes, the grand prize announcement for what the person who wins a Christmas blender wins? And they do. In addition to the normal prizes, which they list, but I did not bother writing down, this year's contest also adds 1 acre of land and the planting of grapes on that field. Everyone thinks this prize is humongous. So huge that Emily immediately texts Sam about the prize, who responds, "We have to win this." We also find out there's going to be judges and regular people voting on the wine. After the meeting, we see that Tony has created a dossier for Sam to get to know Parker better so that you can find out all of his predilections, what he's into, what he's not into. They make a joke multiple times about how Parker, according to the dossier, doesn't like dogs. They say it like it's just this really knee-slapping joke, and then they call it back like, and he doesn't like dogs? Well, I don't like Parker, so it doesn't really matter to me. They have a bit where Tony and Emily go out to dinner, but then they end up being at the same restaurant as Sam and Parker. And there's a whole to-do about them trying to sneak out. It infuriated me. I did not like it. Throughout these dates, Parker and Sam get closer together. She ends up really falling for him, which, anybody could see that coming. That's not a big deal. Eventually, after this one date, she can tell that she's starting to really fall for him, so it becomes a bit more complicated. Ultimately, it all falls apart during one date where Parker and Sam are having a nice time, but then up walks the mayor of the town who ran the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and she says to Parker, "Well, you better be nice to her, or because she's part of the Hermanhoff family, and they're a big deal here, and you two are the wine royalty, whatever." And he loses his shit. He's like, "What? How could you lie to me? How could you do this to me? How could you mislead me?" And he immediately knows that it's something to do with Tony. And Tony's like, "Yeah, I had a hand in this. I'm the one that set this up because, Emily and I just wanted to be together, and we wanted to prove to you that, just because you like someone doesn't mean that, you're going to betray the company." And Parker's not having any of it. So then what ends up happening is Tony, a grown man, is not allowed to date Emily anymore, or else he'll lose his shares in the company. And then on the other side, the Hermanhoff family, you have Sam mad at her dad because he won't listen to any of her ideas for what kind of wine to make for the Christmas blender. So she decides she's done. She doesn't have the guy. She doesn't have this mission anymore. She's headed back to doing her flight attendant job. So she's getting ready to leave. Emily confronts her dad and it says, you need to stop this. This is crazy. And then they have a long, heartfelt conversation, which could have happened at any point prior in their lives, but they have it now. And he says, I understand what you're saying. I understand that I have a challenge. And Emily says, years ago, Sam and I made our own wines, and they just so happen to be down in the cellars, and they just so happen to be 7 years old. And I'm not a wine person, but I presume that 7-year-old wine is some kind of cusp of being, usable at that point. Like, it's 7 years old, then we can definitely drink it. So she takes him down to the cellar. They tapped one of the barrels that they had made long ago, and the wine is incredible. The wine is amazing. This is what he declares is going to be the wine that they serve at the Christmas blender. But before we can even get there, he needs to go and get Sam before she flies away. So they chase her down at the airport. She's back in her flight attendant attire, but they chase her down and they say, "Please come back," and he apologizes and they make good, and the whole family's happy to be together. All right, so back to Tony and Parker. After the reveal of the shenanigans, Parker is just back to doing work, and he seems happy as a clam. He's just doing his job, but Tony seems miserable. The whole time I'm thinking, is he going to quit? Because that makes sense. If he quits the job, that makes a lot of sense. But he doesn't. He doesn't quit the job. He just goes on with everything. Eventually, we wind up at the Christmas blender. Everybody tries all the wines, and the public at large votes for their favorite. Wouldn't you know it, the top two wines are Parker and Tony's wine and the Hermanhoff wine. And then it's time for the big reveal, who the judges think are gonna be the top wine of this city. And they have a bit where the judges write down their scores on dry erase boards. So we get like Olympic style scoring for these wines. But before that is revealed, we have on stage Sam standing next to Parker because they're the representatives of each company. And they're waiting for the scores, and Sam whispers to Parker, "I'll forfeit if you let Tony date Emily." And he says, "What?" She goes, "Well, I love my sister and I want her to be happy. And I'll forfeit if you can let them be together." And he's really confused at this person choosing, familial love over some sort of financial success. And I'm confused because Her family needs this prize. Like, somehow this extra land and the extra wine, or the grapes that are going to be planted on there, it'll help them shore up their costs, and it'll help them turn more profitable. But she's not thinking any of that. She's just like, she's making this decision unilaterally without consulting anybody else. I'll forfeit if you let them be together. He's confused, he's taken aback, but he doesn't answer. Then we get scores. They don't properly explain whose scores are the first set of scores until after they're read, which kind of dilutes some of the mystery. Like, whoa, is that who they got? Or is that what they got? So anyway, Parker's wine scores a 9.4, a 9.5, and a 9.4. Is that a good score? We don't know. We've never seen any other wine scored. For all we know, this is the highest score ever, or it could be the lowest score ever. And then it's time for Sam's family's wine. And her wine scores a 9.8, a 9.8, and a 9.9. They even had a bit while they were still deciding on what the scores are. The judges were talking amongst each other. And the mayor's like, the judges are talking. This is highly unusual. And after you see the scores, it's like, what are they talking about? They each have their own score. There's no consultation needed. Regardless, Sam's wine wins. Everyone cheers. Sam whispers to Parker that she's still willing to forfeit the prize if Parker will let them be together. She then threatens to just forfeit outright if he doesn't answer her. And he says, no, accept the prize. You deserved it. You earned it. And then during the prize acceptance, she gives a speech about how much she appreciates it and how much she loves her family, and how with family, I don't know, you can do anything. We then flash back to the beginning of the movie, where we see the scene where they were playing hide and seek in the cellar in more complete form, where we see, oh no, it was their mom that turned the light off accidentally, and it was their mom that turned the light back on purpose. And then after that, their mom showed them to one of the wines that was being crafted and poured them some, but not for tasting, just for smelling. And little Emily was like, wow, that smells pretty. Or no, she actually said gross because she's a cute kid. And then Sam, on the other hand, she was like, that smells like plum and oak. And apparently she was a wine connoisseur expert all the way in her younger years. So back in the present, Parker is also asked if he wanted to. He tells her to not forfeit the prize. And then he's also asked if he wants to give a speech. And so he gives a speech something like, people do it for their family. I love my family. He says that Christmas is a time to help those close to them be happy. Then he looks at Tony and he looks at Emily, and they understand that he's giving them their blessing, his blessing, so they can be together. They hug, and Parker runs off. They tell Sam, go get him. So she chases him out to some kind of Christmas gazebo that is or is not attached to wherever the hell this contest took place. She starts to apologize for misleading him again, but he says he understands. He asks her to stay. Don't move away. Don't go back to your job where you're flying all over the country. Stay here. Your family's here. I'm here. She says yes. They notice mistletoe is above them, and they kiss. The end. Look, I really did not enjoy this movie. I really did not enjoy it. It doesn't sound as bad as it was watching it, and maybe I'm just doing a poor job of explaining it, but I really did not enjoy this movie. It was just so dumb, and the central conceit that these people couldn't date, even though they're adults, because of some weird clause put in there. Oh, that's right. I almost forgot this part. When explaining why the clause was important to Tony, when he's explaining this to Tony about why the clause is important, Parker says, do you know what love does to people like us? And I was like, what are you talking about? What is it? People like you? What does that mean? What do you mean people like you? Humans? People who have step parents? What are you talking about? Anyway, so that's the movie. MVP. Oh man. I don't know. Let's go with Sam. She was fine. She was fine, I guess. She did a good job being an air hostess or flight stewardess, flight attendant, and she did a good job tricking that guy. And I don't know. I have to pick one. MVP is going to be her. Don't watch this movie. Do not watch A Christmas Vintage. I might have played myself when I was picking out movies ahead of time for other movies I'm going to watch. I thought, you know what I'll do? I'm going to watch it. I saw that there was a movie called A Christmas Vintage. Then I saw that there was another one called A Vintage Christmas. And there's even a third one called, I can't remember. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I watched all three of these? Well, now I'm worried that the other one's going to be just as dog shit as this. So that's it. That's the end of episode 9. That's the end of movie number 9. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry my product is falling apart at the seams. But we're doing the best we can here, I promise you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Until then, jingle bells, because I care about you on a deep level.